After 2 crazy weeks of Premier League action, the smoke has cleared and only 2 challengers remain in this year's title race as it reaches its crescendo. That plus Champions League semifinals coming up right here on the Premier League show. Everybody, and welcome along to the Premier League show, episode 4. And before we get started here, please remember, like the damn video, subscribe to the channel. We're really starting to build something really awesome here. I hope you guys have been enjoying all the social media posts recently. My NBA dailies have been consistently kicking off every single day. It's been very fun to do. I did my NFL mock draft. It's been just an incredibly awesome weekend of sports with the draft, with the Premier League, with NBA playoff action. I've just been so busy having to try to just put together all of this content for you. And unfortunately, we haven't had a Premier League show for a couple of weeks here, just because the games just come so thick and fast. And I have to try to also take my time to do some NBA stuff and the NFL mock drafts and stuff. So this show is going to run a bit different than our usual Premier League shows. We're basically just going to go through kind of each team notably and kind of go through over the last couple of weeks and where it leaves everything right now, which is, we got 3 weeks to go of the Premier League. So that means that we're probably going to get to 7 episodes before the end. And I think after that, we'll talk transfers and we'll talk the Euros. But for now, we've got so much to cover, so we might as well just go ahead and jump right into it. Start with the juicy stuff right off the bat, just so I don't keep you guys in wait much longer. And we're just going to jump right into the Premier League title race stuff. We'll talk about some of the other teams that are less involved in the title race, that were involved in FA Cup as well, top 4 race stuff, but I think we're going to get right into the Premier League title race. And where we last left it, I was kind of preaching to you all that the title race was not over, although so many people around the world overreacted to that weekend where Arsenal and Liverpool both lost and Manchester City had won, to say that, it's over, and everyone thinking that the title race is done. And I kind of preached both to Liverpool and to Arsenal. I told them, I said, guys, the worst thing you can do right now is let your heads drop and let Manchester City come here and basically take control. It's up to you. It's not over as long as you guys don't believe that it is over, and you guys make a reaction and you settle yourselves and you go and get yourself some results. I believe one of those teams listened to my advice. The other one did, but then didn't. And that first one is Liverpool. And I said that we would check up on them after they went and they played the Europa League game and they played their game against Fulham. Well, now they've played the Europa League game and now they've played 3 games since. And look, they were facing the 3-0 deficit after losing at home against Atalanta. They did manage to win that second leg, but it wasn't enough for them to advance. So Jurgen Klopp's dream of ending his Liverpool career on a magical night in Dublin finished, unfortunately. But they did say that next game against Fulham was very, very important, and they did respond in kind. I thought Liverpool were superb in their game against Fulham. Yes, there was an equalizer that went in from Fulham, but that second half, I think they showed a lot of great quality. Gravenberch and Jota getting the goals in that second half, and I thought that was important because for this title race, for Liverpool at the time, because they just needed that domino effect to stop right in its tracks before it left them completely in the dust. And at that point, that was a really important, very impressive 3 points away at Fulham, which is a tough place to go and get wins. However, that is about as good as I can say about them about their last week, because it just seems to get tougher and tougher, and the time for Jurgen Klopp now seems to be winding down very quickly without really anything but a Carabao Cup to show for it. They went to Goodison Park and they played their rivals Everton, and it was a really great performance early from Everton. They really got behind that crowd. You can tell that that team, those supporters really wanted to be the ones that put the massive dent in Liverpool, and you can feel that the Everton fans were just so up to try to be the team to space spoil. They've had such a tough season, fighting relegation. And I was saying in our last video, I was talking about them losing 6-0 to Chelsea, and how they probably would be best for them to get relegated and reset. But this performance for Everton against Liverpool showed why they potentially could still be a solid Premier League team, and that is that they played their part in the title drama. And I think this was the punch to the face for Liverpool that started before the knockout blow, because usually there's the one that gets you dizzy and then the big one comes at the end. This was that big punch that kind of set Liverpool onto the edge here. Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored a goal in the second half, and again, just another game where Liverpool just are not clinical enough. I think in every single game that they've played, they have managed to create many, many chances. 23 shots, 7 on target. They dominated the possession with 76% possession against Everton away from home without making any inroads in terms of goals. And look, it's just, you kind of felt, and I'm going to go a bit more in depth into sort of my conclusion on Liverpool in a second, but you kind of felt this was a team slightly punching above their weight. I've been told that because of their ability to win many trophies in recent years, Champions Leagues, Premier Leagues, that outside of Manchester City, that this was the team that was least likely to fail. And watching the football, that didn't translate to me. A lot of those players that had experienced that success, a lot of them are gone. A lot of really important members of that team are gone, including guys like Sadio Mane, Fabinho, Jordan Henderson, James Milner, just to name a few. For Roberto Firmino. This side is one that's in transition. They built a new midfield. They've got a lot of youngsters coming through. They added guys like Diaz and like Nunez and Gakpo, and that kind of changed the look of that front attack line, which is also, by the way, still very, very lethal. Like, they are very hard to defend. They create themselves so many chances, but it's about that clinical edge that Sadio Mane or Roberto Firmino, or even guys like Diogo Jota, is still there, obviously, but remind me of the guy's name. He was Divock Origi, the Belgian, yeah. Even guys like Divock Origi were very clinical players and scored really important goals for Liverpool. It's just sometimes I feel like outside of Salah, and Salah is kind of starting to feel burnt out to me. That attack is just not as the same. They're very talented, but they just don't finish off their dinner. There are games that they do, and it can look really mightily impressive. But what I'm talking about here is the title run in, where it's the most important, where there's so much pressure. They have failed to make the impact that they need at the most important times. And then came the knockout punch, in my opinion. And that was this weekend. They played West Ham. And they go a goal down to West Ham. And then they make a response, and they go 2-1 up. And look, a couple of unorthodox goals, I'd say, that got them back in this game, especially that second one that put them in the league. It sort of ping-ponged in that West Ham area before going in for an own goal. It was almost as if the Liverpool defense just sat back and they kind of watched as West Ham would the clown show happened in front of them. But late on, Mikel Antonio really delivered the hammer blow um, to Liverpool's title race. And yeah, I think that's it. That's it for them. They're going to be now. They're now maximum all they can achieve is 84 points, which I believe Arsenal and City will easily eclipse. They now currently sit, and without really um, kind of ruining my analysis on the other two teams, but we might as well. Liverpool sits 5 points off the top, right, with 3 games remaining, which is a huge gap with 3 games remaining. Like, if the second place team was 5 points off it, you would almost think that the top side is on their way. They're Premier League champions elect, only needing to acquire 4 points to win the league at that point. So, from that perspective, you could almost assuredly cross out Liverpool as the team to win the league. And look, it comes back to my first ever show and what I said. I said, I don't know who's going to win this title race, but I just know it's not going to be Liverpool. And then I sort of came back on that a little bit just because I don't want to mess with the drama of what could be an amazing title race or cancel out any possibilities, just to kind of protect maybe myself. But my initial feeling was that this Liverpool team was not a title winning team. This was a team that had a really bad season last year. They had ran out of gas and made some changes to their team and had life reinvigorated to them. But they also suffered a lot through injury. And I think they've been through a lot. And recently, the news has come out that Arne Slot is not going to become the manager of Liverpool. So I think they're out of time now where the rest of the season now here is 3 games to go. They're going to play Tottenham, they're going to play Villa, and they're going to play Wolves. And for me, what these last 3 games are games in which they need to win just so their season doesn't completely fall away and that they can at least end with some momentum for Jurgen Klopp and send him away in a good way. They're going to have 2 home games here coming up. They're going to play Spurs at Anfield, and they're going to play on the last day. They're going to play Wolves at Anfield, and those are going to be some emotional days for the Reds and their supporters. But look, unfortunately for them, and I don't want to be too harsh, I think this is going to be them taking a step back for a while from title races, just a step back. It's going to be very hard with a manager coming from the Dutch league. You've seen how, like, Eric Ten Hag, how hard it's been him for adjust to the Premier League. Obviously, they've chosen him. He's probably like their third choice at the moment, because I thought originally they wanted Alonso, then they wanted Emerim, and now they're going to go for Slot. And I think Slot has decided to take over that job, and that's going to be official. So I think they got to move into a new direction. They're going to have to probably consider letting go of some of their more key guys like Salah, especially, and kind of resetting and allowing the new manager to sort of decide who he likes of the current team, and for them to sort of I forgot the director's name. His name is Michael. Is it Michael Edwards? Remind me in the comments section if I'm wrong. But for them to kind of just revamp kind of what the style they want to play under the new manager, because look, I think for a new manager to expect him to play Jurgen Klopp's system is very unfair to him. You have to let him kind of work in his sweet spot and play the type of football that he's used to playing, and kind of allowing Liverpool to kind of maybe I don't know much about Arne Slot. I'm going to be honest because I don't really watch the Dutch league or um, so I don't really know that much. But what I'd say is, look, they can't make the same mistakes that Man United have, for instance, with Eric Ten Hag, and they have to they have to sort of make transfers. I think with more than just this next manager in mind, but they also need those same players to be able to play the style of football that the new manager wants. And the expectations can't be so high because if the expectations are that high for Liverpool next year, I think they'll be in trouble. I think what they need to understand is Jurgen Klopp has left them in general in a very great position. Before Jurgen Klopp took over, they had gone many, many years without any Premier League titles. They hadn't won the Champions League since '06. And '06, '05, I forgot which year it was. Um, but they were middling fourth slash fifth place sort of side when Klopp took over. They had a couple of title races which they fell short um, under Brendan Rodgers, but I think I think he left them such a great position right now. This is a team that has got winning mentality, um, a great, rich, recent history, and a brilliant academy full of really great players. They've done a great job of scouting, not just local boys from Liverpool, but across Europe. And you could see that a lot of their youngsters come in and they don't really miss a beat, which is just completely Jurgen Klopp. Like that's kind of his staple. That's what he used to do back in the day with Borussia Dortmund, and because they used to sell so many players, and he was able to always kind of revamp that because he was so good. His talent ID was so good. That's what I'm interested to see with what the new manager will bring to them. But for now, look, I think Liverpool, they're out of the title race, and yeah, I think they're just going to be playing. They're going to be finishing. I think they'll finish in third regardless. There's a very outside shot for Aston Villa to finish in third, but that would involve Liverpool completely blowing it and losing all of their games. So, um, yeah, so that's my review on Liverpool. Unfortunately, that was the team that didn't make it, but we're going to move on now to the title challengers that remain. So now we'll move on and talk about the other title challenger, and that is Arsenal, before we round off our title talk with the current favorites and the current champions. So the other team that I plead with, and I said, guys, please, if you guys let your heads drop at this point, then you're right. Then City have won the Premier League because I still believe, and even at this point, and I'm going to talk about what Arsenal have done in this week because it's huge. This is a huge turnaround from the last time I was discussing Arsenal. I was discussing Arsenal at their lowest points of this season the last time we turned on this tape. But the last couple of weeks have been a return to normality and a return to the standard that I've discussed about Arsenal in terms of their ability to be very strong, professional, solid, controlling, and they've been playing an amazing, beautiful brand of free-flowing football. And this is the team now, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, that is... I think that the Premier League title race is got one twist left. Honestly, I think the Premier League title race has got one twist left. But I'm going to expand on that a little bit later in a few minutes after I've discussed what Arsenal have done over the past few weeks. Now, we'll start off with the Champions League stuff. They did get knocked out by Bayern Munich, and they lost 1-0. So they didn't quite rebound in terms of the Champions League. They actually went home, but was actually a pretty good away performance. It was sort of that that type of away performances that we saw them play against Manchester City away from home, with the difference being that they had one moment they switched off when Kimmich was able to head the ball into the back of the net to give them the Bayern Munich the win. And so they did go bow out of the Champions League, which um, did kind of lead to their lowest moments. And there were a lot of questions about Mikel Arteta, which I never really understood because if you look at the team that he took over, where they were at, and the standards that they were at, they were going through a transition where they had lost their longest term manager of 22 years in Arsene Wenger. And then they went through kind of a manager who didn't really fit. It was an awkward fit. They're going back and forth through a bunch of interim guys. Not Jens Lehmann. Freddie Ljungberg took over as an interim at one point as well. Um, and Arteta has really changed the culture. He's brought the fans and the playing group together. He's introduced a new, better atmosphere at the Emirates. He's basically gotten rid of the poisonous culture in the Arsenal locker room, and he's brought everyone together. It's a close knit community, and there's a belief, a togetherness that is starting to, as the years go by under Mikel Arteta, grow stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think part of that is them having to experience the disappointments they've had to experience, missing out on the Champions League, then missing out on the title, then getting knocked out of the Champions League here this year, and I think Arsenal have been, bar that Aston Villa game, flawless in the year 2024, and they went. I said the most important game, just like Liverpool, was going to be that Wolves game away from home. And you could tell it was such a nervy game. They got themselves in front like a toe poke from Trossard that should have gone off target, but somehow he hit it so badly that it went in the top corner. And sometimes he just needs that just so they can see the ball go in the back of the net. Because I felt that time Arsenal were struggling to put away chances. They were starting to get into that phase I was just talking about with Liverpool a moment ago. And from then on, they kind of went back to their identity. They got that goal. They controlled that game, and they allowed Wolves a little bit more of the ball. And eventually, at the end, Odegaard put it away to make it 2-0. And I think at that game was important because they needed to win that game. That was the one where if they went, everyone was waiting. They were lining up, waiting to write the eulogy of Arsenal, and it never happened. And I think that was such an important moment for them in their season to face the negativity and head on and go, no, we refuse to be out of this race. We're only 2 points behind Manchester City. And Man City were not playing in action that week, and it put them back top. And what followed was an incredible domination of Chelsea. A statement that Arsenal very much have the potential to be the champions. They absolutely destroyed Chelsea. They stole their hearts. Trossard scores so quickly into the start of the game, right? And it takes all of the hope of Chelsea. Because look, Arsenal's week this week was challenging from this perspective. They played two of their biggest crosstown rivals who were all so desperate, licking their lips, getting ready to be the ones to derail the Arsenal's title race. They could not fathom the idea of having to go through it a whole summer of potentially having to deal with Arsenal's fans, right? They had a chance to be the ones, for their pride, to be the ones to do it and to put away Arsenal. And instead, Arsenal really showed up. And Kai Havertz scored 2 goals to get the revenge that he felt like he needed against his former team. They had completely destroyed that man. Mentally, psychologically, Um, they 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 threw his reputation name under the bus. They slandered him. Everyone was talking about how bad of he is, and you forget the wonder kid that joined them from Bayer Leverkusen, and you're starting to see that version of him more and more this year at Arsenal. He's scoring goals in massive periods of the game, and yeah, he scores just. I mean, Ben White scores that does score the big goal. I have to go back over these results, but because that there were so many goals in that second half that there was a it was a blitz of goals, but yeah. So Ben White was the one that made it 2-0, and then Havertz, um, yeah, just put the daggers in it, made it 4-0, and Ben White sort of hits this fluky kind of fifth goal, but also could have scored 10. Like they were creating so many chances. Chelsea looked like completely destroyed, and Arsenal sucked the life out of them. This is a team that had just won 6-0 in their previous Premier League game, and then also barely went down 1-0 to Man City in the semifinals of the FA Cup. And Arsenal completely destroyed them. They were licking their lips to try to end their season, and Arsenal destroyed them. Then that followed up by a trip just yesterday to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And I think this is a bit of a different game from the Chelsea game, but it started off, I think, even better for Arsenal. It was a real true statement. I felt going into this week. Sometimes you think a title winning team has to have that week, that defining week, where they put everyone's jaws and they drop them to the floor. Everyone's waiting for them to fail, and they stand up to that task, and they really do it, and they show their dominance. And they were 3-0 up at halftime yesterday against Tottenham. And Tottenham played their part in this game. They were really good. I think they really were up for this game. I think more so than Chelsea was. Their fans, that stadium, they were hungry. They were ready to write the eulogies of Arsenal. Tottenham wanted nothing more than to be the team to spoil Arsenal. And I touched on this on recent episodes where we're talking about the run-in and the fact that Tottenham have to play Liverpool and Man City as well. If Tottenham would be the type to lay down and allow Manchester City and Liverpool to give them their best chance, so Arsenal definitely do not win the title. And I'm starting to feel like they're in a position where they can't really do that anymore. This result, if they were going to stop Arsenal, they had to do it themselves. And Højbjerg puts it in after 15 minutes with an own goal. And then Tottenham think that they have equalized. But Mickey van de Ven was called back for offside. And then that was followed by just an incredible, awesome ball over the top from Kai Havertz to Bukayo Saka, who just coolly probably scores the most noteworthy goal of his entire career. I talked about the Bayern goal being a noteworthy goal, being a Champions League quarterfinal, but this is a goal in the Premier League title race to put them 2 goals up away at their biggest rival with 3 games to go after this. These goals and title run-ins are worth like 3, 4, 5 times as much as any other goal. And Bukayo Saka, I think, put to bed with that strike the fact that he is not a big game player, that he doesn't score big goals in big moments. This was a huge moment. And from then on, Arsenal were really invigorated. And a Declan Rice corner with a little bit of shithousery, dark arts from Ben White, blocking the keeper, allows Kai Havertz to comfortably come in and head home to 3-0. And Arsenal, at halftime, really, I kind of sat down and said here, like, I know City are technically are in the box seat and they're still the favorites. But if Arsenal were to win this league, they would definitely just thoroughly deserve it. They were the third favorites mainly due to the fact that they had the toughest remaining schedule. And they did falter against Aston Villa, but that wasn't the game that they looked at. They looked at this week, this Chelsea, this Tottenham week, and said, circled it and said, this is the week that Arsenal bow out of this title race. Now that those games have now gone by, Arsenal's remaining games. By the way, I should finish off this. So pause on that thought. I'm gonna finish off the Tottenham game. Tottenham had a fight back in this game. Christian Romero took advantage of a massive error from David Raya, who Arsenal kind of looked comfortable and they were passing around. They were olays, 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 and David Raya just tries something. He passively passes the ball directly to Romero, who smashes it past him. And it was sort of like the wake-up call. Arsenal were cruising at this point, and it reinvigorated Tottenham Stadium, which had many of their fans leaving the stadium. And they came back into the game. They came rushing into the game. And then again, I think this was the challenge that Arsenal needed this second half. This game was the equivalent of that Liverpool game from last year. Or the West Ham game, but more the Liverpool game. The fact that it was a rival who had the ability to try to play spoiler. But the difference here is that Arsenal are a different side. And also they had scored a third goal, which is really crucial. They spoke so many times about they had to score a third after they got a second, because that is important, and that really proved to be correct. This game was really brought to life late when Declan Rice basically fouls Ben Davies, kicks him in the man region, if you know what I mean, and that gets checked by VAR, and Heung-min Son puts away the penalty. But from then on, Tottenham really desperately, they could smell it. They thought, this is our chance to end Arsenal's title run. We can be the team that ends Arsenal's title run. They were so excited. That crowd was on fire, and they were whipping in crosses and trying to create chances, and Arsenal kind of let them have it. But also remained defensively strong. And regardless of the fact that they did concede two very sloppy goals in this game, the practice, the good habits that they put together, and this is why that solidness I've been talking about since basically I started the Hot Sport and the Premier League show, comes into play. And that's being able to practice in these moments when everything's be turning against you and the tide is turning and the momentum is turning, to be able to be solid, squeeze the life out of the game. Son's penalty was about 9 real minutes away from the final whistle, and it was 9 minutes that Arsenal knew that they've practiced this over and over again in game, in training. Their ability to squeeze the life out of a game, to hold, to be able to be solid in their lines, and not allowed to be progressed. And the best Tottenham could really do in that period was whip crosses into the box, which David Raya caught, because Arsenal would not allow them to progress inside the box and create real shots on target. And that was Arsenal through winning the Tottenham game. And now they have, this is back to now unpause. They have 3 games remaining now. So they were supposed to have had the toughest remaining schedule. Currently on the schedule for Arsenal is Bournemouth, who, by the way, they won big yesterday against Brighton. They've actually been on really good form as of late. So that's going to be a tougher game than people think. It's another possible banana skin. If anything, Bournemouth are actually on better form recently than either Chelsea or Spurs. So they're going to play them at home. And if you remember, Bournemouth was the game that they needed the Reece Nelson goal last year to win it, where they went down 2-0 and they had to fight back to win 3-2 on the last kick of the game from Reece Nelson. So that fixture is one to circle, because it was a real hard game for Arsenal last year, and they got caught out. So they're not going to cruise to 3 wins, but for somehow I believe that they're going to get them. The next game after that is Old Trafford, and a Man United team that has been all over the place and in a wreck and in shambles. And also, I believe a Man United team that would have Arsenal as a preference of potential champions, given the rivals that I think now rival, because I think like we're talking about Liverpool. I think Liverpool are out, but given the fact that Man City would it have the ability to achieve something that Man United never had, which is win a quadruple, and I don't know if there's going to be much motivation for Man United to win that game. I might be wrong. And it might just be the football gods that tell that I don't believe in football gods. I believe in one God, but you know what I mean. So it might be me saying that might be the thing that actually ends up meaning that Man United are the team that picks up the points that ends Arsenal's title race. But you feel like that game is one game before the end, and if Arsenal have a within a sniff, I think they'll be really up to just to win Old Trafford. And I'll say this: if Arsenal go to Old Trafford and win, I think it's a massive sign of them actually being able to be the deserving champions, because they would have beaten on that run in so they had the hardest run in. But they would have gone ahead, beaten Chelsea, beaten Spurs, beaten Man United in that run in. And that is the run in of champions if they were to go win that game. And then they have the Everton game on the last game of the season. A game which traditionally at the Emirates, Arsenal managed to win their final games pretty handily. I'd be interested to see what it would be like with a title on the line if they were to be in that position. But Arsenal or Man City, whoever wins this Premier League, will be thoroughly deserving. And we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But Arsenal have really progressed. And I don't want to hear anything about Mikel Arteta. Right? Sometimes people talk about trophies. And you can win trophies. You can win FA Cups. You can win Carabao Cups. You can win Europa Leagues. I don't include the Champions League in this one. But really, what Arsenal are doing are punching in the heaviest weight class. So you're playing high-stakes poker. And if you come this close, at this point, the Arsenal are not bottling it. That was it. Yesterday was the moment. Yesterday was the moment when they were 3-0 up and they went down to 3-2. That was the moment that Arsenal could have bottled it. But that moment now has passed, in my opinion. And let's see, because I don't want to ruin the script, but I think there's one twist left to go in this race. One or two. This is what's either going to happen. Either Man City are going to drop points at one point. I think they're surely going to drop points. I think I don't know if they'll lose, but I think one of the last 4 games they're going to have a draw. And it could be away at Spurs, it could be away at Fulham, or it could be at home against Wolves. I don't foresee them losing that final game of the season against West Ham at home. But again, that's also a very tough team, but also a team that struggled away from home. But it's also a team that again, just denied Liverpool. So that I believe now Arsenal are the team with the easiest run in. And either there's one or two twists left. Either Man City are going to give Arsenal the chance to win this league by drawing one of those 4 games. And after that, I think either Arsenal decide, are they ready to be champions, or will they let it slip? Arsenal are going to I think they will have their opportunity to win this. I think that moment's going to come where Man City hand off the initiative to Arsenal one time, and see if Arsenal have the ability this time to handle the pressure and get it over the line. So I don't think it's a case of both teams go perfect. I think I think there's still some like it's just it's I can't see how things happen that easily, straightforward. I think yeah, I think that's what's gonna happen. I think Arsenal's gonna have a chance here. It'll be up to them. It might be a moment like going to Old Trafford, having to win that, or maybe maybe Spurs get the draw, and Arsenal have to have a nervy game against Everton on the last day, or maybe it just happens that Arsenal draw against Bournemouth or lose to Bournemouth, and Man City's drop points happens anyway, but it means nothing. And that's the worst case scenario for Arsenal. But our title talk portion of the show, talking about Manchester City. And we've spoken a lot about them just while talking about Liverpool and Arsenal because obviously their seasons are all now very connected. But I think the biggest point here that I didn't really touch on Manchester City was I did say that they weren't going to be perfect. And they did their moment came, and that came in the second leg of the Champions League at home. And everyone again, see, I feel like, and I look, when it comes to covering Manchester City, it's difficult because I feel like you're always fighting an uphill battle here, because praising them just seems so academic just because they've been so great. They've created almost a fear about them in which everyone just believes that they'll do it in the end just because they keep on doing it. And everyone sort of just afraid to put their chest out and say something else other than Manchester City winning. And that's not my brand. My brand is I treat every single season differently. Um, I've also not been a domination guy. Like, I never really liked the New England Patriots in the NFL, and I've always kind of just wanted any other team but them to win it um, back in the day because of the way they dominated. Um, the Warriors in the NBA were like that for a while. I didn't like it. Um, I don't. I like how every single season you can see how teams have made adjustments. You've seen player movements, um, coaching movements, and how every year everything could be different. I like how there's a reaction. I like what I love about in American sports with drafts. You know, like the weakest teams then get the best players coming up. That way, that there's always a parity. So I'm always been a big parity guy, and obviously the Premier League is the one sport where you don't really quite get that. I think historically, there's always been a team that's dominated it. But there have been periods, and even while Man City were upcoming, I think before Pep, where I've seen you saw United win a league, you've seen Chelsea win a league, you saw Leicester win a league, you saw Liverpool win a league at post Pep. Um, um, yeah, everyone's had their pop at the championship, and recently, I'm just gonna be up front here on the Man City thing. I'm trying to always fight against the narrative that Manchester City are just going to be perfect and wipe everything clean. And if I see that, I will be the first to point it out because I'm always very honest about what I see. I'm not gonna blind myself from what I see. But what I see here is a Manchester City side different to what I've seen recently. At the moment, they are my favorites because by my rule is that if if it's in your hands to win the title, then you have to be the favorites. Like I I never really liked the fact that City were still the favorites, even though they were sitting in the third position. Like the favorites for the bookies odds makers have never changed. Not even all the time that Liverpool were ahead or when Arsenal were ahead were the bookies favorites ever anyone but Man City. Um, I felt the weekend when Liverpool dropped points to Man United, I was going to turn on the app and see that Arsenal were the favorites, but they weren't, and I thought it was weighted because of the schedules. And Arsenal's, I think that's been sort of right because Arsenal's odds have now shortened to 240, which is their shortest Premier League odds since basically a year ago when they had the chance to win it. Over a year ago now. But this Champions League game, they went behind and they were a little bit Liverpool like it. And I've seen games like this. It comes and it happens at least once or twice a month for Manchester City this whole year. And there've been games where they're just not clinical. They make all their chances and they play all that. They dominate the ball. They squeeze the life and they kind of lock you in, try to score, goal, score, and they create chance, and they just can't put the back of the ball in the back of the net. And this Real Madrid game was one of them. Now, unlike Liverpool, though, Man City had the ability to at least one time find it. They rarely end a game without finding the back of the net, which is why I praise Arsenal so highly in my first ever show following their draw. When everybody was critical of that for being able to go to Etihad and keep a clean sheet, that was something that was overlooked because it's very hard. So they ended up going 1-1 and going into extra time. They really dominated Real Madrid. Like, honestly, a lot of the times, even when Man City really are the best team in the world. And they can dominate any team. They make now any team in Europe fearful and make any team in Europe change their tactics. And it's because of Pep Guardiola. He has been the manager of the most dominant sides in Europe. When he was with Barcelona, that was the greatest team I've ever seen in my entire life. The players that they had, the way they were set up, the culture, and obviously Messi, right? And then he shockingly left Barcelona and decided to take on a project in Germany to coach Bayern. And it was like, and Bayern Munich obviously were always a great team, they always dominated, but it was almost like overnight, Bayern Munich became the best team, like best team in Europe. Like there's machine-like qualities to them, and obviously he's taking all the players of world champions from that World Cup, and actually I'm pretty sure that he was actually the manager of Bayern when Germany won the World Cup, I think. But yeah, obviously, I remember he brought in Arturo Vidal in that team. Thiago was in that team. Who else was in that team? So many good players. Obviously, Philip Lahm and Jerome Boateng and Mats Hummels and Alaba, Neuer, Kimmich, Robin, Ribéry, Lewandowski. Yeah, it was just a really really good team. There are a few other ones. Some Brazil, Douglas Luiz, if I'm pretty sure. Like that style of football, the brand, the type of players, he knows exactly what he kind of likes. And that Bayern team was amazing. And I remember they stuffed my Arsenal team in the Champions League. Oops. Okay, I guess cat's out of the bag now. I am an Arsenal fan. It's gonna happen at some point. But they absolutely stuffed him. And he took over Manchester City, and you could kind of see where it was going. Um, that they were going to become just so dominant. The well of money that came in from the Sheikh, and Pep just sort of knew it, and he got rid of the players that he didn't like. He replaced the goalie. He brought in everything because he brought in Kyle Walker, and he knew exactly what he wanted. Like there was a really good team that he had. Like Yaya Toure was in their thing. David Silva, Aguero, all those guys. Like they had some really good players. Even before that under Pellegrini, like Alvaro Negredo. Um, they were really really good, and since then, this coach has just made Manchester City into something that is just incredible, and he's broken the will of every single team in Europe. But and they obviously won the treble last year. But in this instance here, they lost on penalty shootout, and that double treble is not on. And you could see there was that moment of vulnerability. Now, this is the moments of vulnerability for Manchester City April version. And it came right after my previous show, and I said, I don't think they're going to go perfect and win everything. And that was kind of it for April. Um, Earlier, obviously, in the month, they had done the draw with Arsenal, which was about as far as the bad results went. So, two draws really in the month. But prior to that, they also had a draw with Liverpool, and so I believe still that the month of May is going to have another moment like that for Manchester City. Um, they've got 4 games remaining. I believe only one of them are at home. They play, wait, they play Fulham away. They play Tottenham away. They play Wolves at home. So they have 2 at home. 2 at home, 2 are away. Wolves at home, West Ham at home. Okay, so 2 at home, 2 away. I said this in the Arsenal one that I believe their next 3 games. Look, if Man City win the next 3 games, that's it. Um, they have a very poor record away at Tottenham, and as much as Tottenham fans would love for their team to not win that game, so Arsenal don't win the league, I don't believe it's the same for Ange. You could just even tell the way he coached the game yesterday. He was like he doesn't really care. He doesn't really care. He didn't care about Arsenal and the way they played. Like he wasn't really respectful. He didn't do anything to stop Bukayo Saka. I just don't think he Ange really cares. I think Fulham caused Liverpool scare until Liverpool pulled away. Fulham beaten Arsenal. Wolves pushed Arsenal the other week. Arsenal squeezed ahead with that 2-0 at the end, right? Wolves were also missing a lot of their key guys, which could be back for that next game for Man City. If that's is Wolves next or Fulham next? Let me look at my fixture here. Fixtures. All clubs. They have Wolves next. So, I think one of the Wolves game, the Fulham game, or the Spurs game is going to produce. You know what? Even the West Ham game. West Ham just got a draw against Liverpool. Like West Ham, the ability to cause some issues as well for Man City. I think these are some pretty tricky ties. In all honesty, um, these are all teams who have caused team's issues. Man City, like, let's go one by one. Wolves. Man City have already lost to Wolves this season in the Premier League, um, away from home. Two, Fulham. Fulham have beaten Arsenal in the Premier League, and drawn against Arsenal in the Premier League. Um, they've caused Liverpool issues, even though Liverpool won both times. And what happened in their previous result? Wait, Fulham. Man City. What happened earlier this year? Okay, well that was a 5-1 thrashing by City. Okay. But the point is that Craven Cottage is a tough place to go and get wins for big clubs. And then you have Tottenham, where Manchester City has never actually won, if I'm correct. They've never won at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So this is the one fixture that really over the years has really caused City problems. And they drew with them earlier this year. In like a 3-goal right. City. Yeah, it was a 3-3 at the Etihad. So, and look, and even at that point, you would have thought December the 4th, you would have thought like, yeah, like games like that, like. And then West Ham on the final day. Like that could be interesting. Could you imagine if on the last day you're watching side by side and Man City were to drop points at home to West Ham? I just think it's going to happen somewhere. The question for me is, do Arsenal go perfect? That's the question. But look, Manchester City have to be my favorites just because it's in their control, and if they win all 4 of these games, they will be the champions. Regardless, they'll win it by 2 points. And their form since returning back to the Premier League, they had the 4-0 win against Brighton, the 2-0 win against Forest. Prior to that, they had the 5-1 against Luton. But I don't think those are any of those teams are teams that are playing good ball at this moment in time. And you can argue Wolves aren't really playing great ball. Fulham is playing. What was Fulham? Fulham's result this week. They drew with Palace. Wolves beat Luton. So Wolves. Who was the Wolves team that played? What was the Wolves team that played? Okay, very similar to that also, but Matthias Cunha was playing. Um, Huang played the whole game, didn't come off. So, yeah, look, let's see what they, with 1 week left, who is back in the lineup for Wolves. Like, will they get um, any of their good players back? Let's see. That's definitely one to watch. Um, but then, okay, Tottenham again. Let's see. They've just lost to Newcastle and Arsenal back to back. So let's see if what happens with Tottenham against Chelsea, and let's see. But those aren't easy. Those 4 games for City are not going to be easy. So it's going to be interesting. But my main point here, and I'll conclude this segment here, is with this. And then we'll quickly talk about some of the other teams. Just quickly, we'll skip over. We'll talk about Aston Villa, Newcastle, Manchester United. We've kind of really discussed Chelsea and Spurs already, while talking about the other ones. But with this, I'll end. I'm not going to subscribe to, and I'm seeing so many people go, oh, well, look, it's a shame that, Arsenal's not going to win the league now, even though they're playing the best football, because Man City's just going to go perfect. And even last year, they didn't go perfect. They dropped points twice in the last week after kind of it already was over with, but they did, and they relaxed and they kind of dropped points twice. Pep Guardiola already alluded to the fact. He said that if we don't go perfect, we're not winning the league this year. I think it's very clear to everyone at this point, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm pushing any sort of narratives. But whoever wins the league from now on is going to deserve to win the league. Man City, if they win, will deserve because they went perfect from the chance that they were given and they didn't cough it up. That's huge, and it's something that they are very experienced at doing, and that's kind of the argument towards why they might win it. But if Arsenal were to win the league, they would thoroughly deserve it because of the teams that they played and the performances and the adversity that they had to fight, the hurdles that they had to get over, and the opponents that they had to beat. And right now, they just seem to be catching fire at a high level. Like, they are now playing at the highest level of the game against some of the toughest opponents, and they're winning, and they're putting them to the side. Let's see what goes on. But I'm so excited to be here with you throughout this. We will be discussing this really closely over the next few weeks. How this goes. We're gonna go now. It's kind of slows down. You're gonna get in terms of the title race. Man City are going to play Spurs in the midweek, but that's going to be right before the end. Spurs are going to play Chelsea in the midweek coming up. But besides that, it's weekends. So I'm going to try to book in these Premier League shows on Tuesdays. That way it comes after Monday Night Football moving forward. So we'll do next Tuesday, the Tuesday after that, and the Tuesday after that. Which will include my reaction to all the stuff that unfolds. The title winner is going to be known within the next 3 weeks. And 3 weeks from now, we will know. So it can be exciting. We've just gone over the hour mark here on this week's show. So I'm going to just kind of be brief here with respect to these clubs. But following that win, which I left Aston Villa against Arsenal, which they had a really big win that weekend, having beaten Arsenal and had Newcastle beaten Tottenham. They had a chance with Tottenham kind of not playing to make an impact, and they did. They've done a really good job. I think overall now here, if you really see the way this turns out, they've actually gone and they've beaten Bournemouth at home 3-1. There was a really dominant game, really good game of ball played by. Actually, it was a really fun game to watch. Aston Villa were outstanding in that game, and then this weekend you thought that they had dropped a really crucial 2 points against Chelsea, and the result for Tottenham obviously leaves Aston Villa in a very good position. I'm just going to go over here now at the table, at the top four race as it stands. Villa now have a 7-point advantage in fourth place over Spurs. But Spurs have 2 games in hand. Now, what this game against the North London Derby result has done now, and mixed in with the draw against Chelsea. This is where the draw against Chelsea, by the way, works out. Because Chelsea, again, drawing with Chelsea for a top 4 race for a team like Aston Villa is 1 point gained. And I think they kind of felt that way knowing that Tottenham were to play Arsenal. But obviously it's not a good look to cough up a 2-0 lead in the first half, and Obviously, that's these top four races almost went in their disadvantage from teams dropping big leads because obviously Arsenal had a 3-0 lead that they almost coughed up. Um, but it leaves them now 7 points clear. And even with the two games in hand that Tottenham possess, which, by the way, are against Chelsea and they're against Manchester City. So, even with those two games in hand that Tottenham possess, if Villa were to go ahead and go perfect for the rest of the year, which includes, by the way, a really big game at home against Liverpool coming up in a couple of weeks here. So let's take a look at the fixtures for Villa. They have. Wait, for Villa. Okay. So they have got Brighton away. And I look, Brighton away, I've kept underlying as tough, but both Arsenal and Man City have gone there and beaten them, and I've now seen all three of the title challengers beat them. Villa, I think, is a bit different. That's a tough one. They have to go Brighton away, then they host Liverpool. A game now I'm starting to believe that Liverpool might actually get. Just for pride purposes. And a game away at Selhurst Park. So this is not easy by any stretch. Tottenham obviously have got, in their final 5, they have 5 left. They've got City, Liverpool, and Chelsea. Let's look at Spurs, Tottenham. Tottenham. Chelsea, Liverpool, Burnley at home, Sheffield United at home. So what we'll do here is we're going to give Spurs the points against Sheffield United and Burnley. Sheffield United away, Burnley home. So let's just give them 6. That makes it 1. Of those remaining games, I think I see them going to Stamford Bridge and winning. I think Spurs will go to Stamford Bridge and they'll go win. I think Spurs will draw with Liverpool. And I think Spurs... Let's leave the City one out of it for now. Because that's, I think... So that's 4. 10 points now we've given to Tottenham. Right? So that would put Tottenham on 70. And for Villa, I believe that Villa will beat... They'll beat Burnley. Yeah. I think that Villa will beat Burnley. Not Burnley, Brighton. Villa will beat Brighton. And they will lose. I think they'll lose to Liverpool. And I think they'll beat Crystal Palace. Which would put them onto 73 points. And even then, even if they get a draw against Crystal Palace, I think 4 points will do it now for Aston Villa. I think the next game is huge. The Brighton game is huge. I think if Villa beat Brighton, they only need 1 draw from their final 2 games. In my opinion, with the way Tottenham's schedule lines up, for them to finish in the 4th place. So I think they're thoroughly really in the driver's seat here. Tottenham have got a long way to go. They've got 2 of the title challengers. Well, you know what I mean. They got crosstown rivals Chelsea. Yeah, so that's Burnley. Not Burnley. I keep saying Burnley. I keep throwing Burnley in there. They're playing Spurs, but I keep throwing Burnley in there. But that's Aston Villa. Same colors. In terms of Manchester United, they man, I've got to keep myself straight here. In terms of Manchester United, they went through on penalties in a thriller in the FA Cup when they were 3-0 up and they coughed it up and ended up going like there was a give up a penalty in stoppage time and they ended up going to extra time and they won on penalties against Coventry City. In an absolute classic FA Cup tie, which puts them, I think, their entire microcosm of their season on the line. Everything is really going to come down to that game against City in the FA Cup. Wouldn't it be a very interesting year if Man City don't end up with any trophies? I don't want to put that out into the ether, but it's just as much of a possibility as them winning the double. I reckon it's just as much of a possibility. I'd probably say 60% double, 40% no trophies. Wait, double split, no trophies. Let's say we're going back to Man City again, but so we're putting 3 different categories. I reckon it's 60% chance they do the double. 60% chance they do the double. 30% chance they split 1-1. And a 10% chance they end up with no trophies this year. And wouldn't it be perfect for Man United if they somehow are able to beat them 1-1 at Wembley? If somehow they did that. That would be crazy. But obviously they've had their struggles in the league, United. Since they've spoken, though, they did have a big victory against Sheffield United, and they also had an embarrassing draw where they took a late lead and coughed up a penalty because they do not have any form of composure or ability to really finish games. Right now, Man United are the anti-Arsenal, if anything. And again, the two of them do clash coming up in 2 weeks. So let's kind of quickly, Man United. Newcastle had a really big win against Sheffield United, but previously to that, they also had a loss away at Selhurst Park, 2-0. So they've been up and down since we've last spoken. That's my Newcastle feel. And yeah, so that's kind of, I think we've exhausted now our Premier League discussion. And I think I've got everyone caught up for the run-in, which is going to be 3 weeks remaining now in the Premier League. 3 more massive Premier League shows, hopefully with some news to cover. And we'll go back to our other format of covering each game as it goes. We'll start next week. We'll talk about the Tottenham against Chelsea game to kick it off. So Tottenham and Chelsea will get 2 games discussed about them next week. And we'll discuss it in the regular format. So I'm going to quickly discuss now the Champions League before we wrap up. And that is coming up here in this week. Bayern Munich will be first up as they host Real Madrid at the Allianz Arena, and that is a fixture that I'm really excited for. Obviously, this would have been the massive Man City Arsenal one, but both the sides dropped out of Europe, so that's gonna be fun. I still expect Real Madrid to come out of both these legs. I'm just going to be perfectly honest. And I think PSG will do it over Dortmund. And we're going to have a very interesting final with PSG against Real Madrid. That's kind of what I want to see. I want to see Kylian Mbappe play his last game for PSG against the team he's about to join. That'd be so much intrigue behind that and so much controversy. let's say if Real were to win, or in any specific way. Like, so the Champions League, that should be fun. Obviously, we're not going to be covering that much with as much detail now that the English sides are out. This is the Premier League show, so we're talking about Premier League clubs. This isn't the Bundesliga show. This isn't the La Liga show, and this is not the Liga 1 show. So, yeah. Anyway, we're going to close up this video. I just thought I would give you a different version of the Premier League show this week just to get everyone caught up. It's been a couple weeks. The NBA playoffs have come into it. I had an NFL draft come the other day. I want to kind of come up with some NFL draft reactions, but I'm very, very nerdy on that. So I feel like a lot of you guys just aren't going to kind of get where I'm coming from. But it was really just a whole lot of fun. I love sharing that mock draft with you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys got through it. That was a 3-hour mock draft, right? So, I'm going to try to work towards having shorter videos to keep you guys more engaged. Because obviously I could talk for hours, and I'm gonna be switching up my format here. As I head back, I'm gonna be heading back to work on Wednesday. So my real job, I've been on an annual leave recently, which has been allowed me to do more content for Hotsport. So I'm gonna have to be able to, with that, just create quicker videos, and that's gonna be where I'm gonna lead with moving forward. I think in terms of the Premier League show, I think it's gonna stay as it is the next 3 weeks, and then we're gonna start going into quick, maybe 10-15 minute videos after that, just because it's very hard to maintain, and that way I'm going to be able to, as new seasons start to beginning, like, that way we're starting from the start and we're able to start kind of discuss the big news that breaks or some of the bigger games rather than talk about everything in such detail, because there's going to be so much to go and there's going to be a long grind. So I've joined a lot of these my shows at kind of like the end parts of all the major sports here. I haven't even gotten to AFL quite yet, which I will get into again once that starts to heat up. But yeah. But guys, thank you so much everyone for tuning in. I'm just really excited about, again, I feel like I said this in every episode, but I'm so excited about where this is going. We're really sharing some content with you guys. Shout out, we're obviously looking to expand our hotspot community. So if there's anybody out there who wants to try their hand in content creation and bouncing off ideas off me, maybe working in the background here. At the moment, we don't really have much of a income. We're not monetized yet, so at the moment it's volunteer based. But we're working behind the scenes as well to try to get other people on board with this. So at the moment, it's going to be just me and my ugly mug. But this is going to be hopefully a channel that really grows and has many different personalities and many different shows and people who can cover all the sports. So looking forward. Make sure you're subscribing, right, to Hotsport. We are doing our best. I'm doing my best to get as much out there. Follow us on our Instagram. Our Instagram has been popping off recently. I've gotten so many posts out recently. We do all the scores of all the games right after they conclude. I've been doing my NBA dailies there on Instagram. So if you really wanted to see those NBA dailies, make sure you watch them on our Instagram page. So if you're on the YouTube page and you don't follow the Instagram, go follow our Instagram. I'll leave a link down below in this video for it. But until then, we got a lot of stuff coming up. NBA playoffs roll on. We'll do an NBA show at the conclusion of round 1 as a preview for round 2. And the Premier League will continue for the next 3 weeks, and then we'll kind of do a reset of our format moving forward. But until next time, take care, God bless you all you beautiful people who subscribe to Hotspot and watch me every week. And I'll see you soon.